This podcast contains explicit language.
And spoilers. Only if you suck.
Hey folks, Carlos here. So listen, I don't know if it was our equipment that day, or the environment we recorded in, I should say, or some hiccup in editing, probably some combination of all of those things, but the sound quality in this episode blows. It's still listenable, but there are sound hiccups and places where our syllables are cut off because, like, we talk too low, and then the truncate silence process I did kind of clipped away those segments, and I was too lazy to re-edit the whole thing again because I wanted to get it out this evening. So, apologies for that. Next episode will be better. Sorry again.
This is Dave.
This is Carlos. Two Bad Guys Games!
Episode
29 or 8? Let's record one of each, and we'll just use the one that's correct. Hopefully
28.
We'll fix this in editing.
29.
The 29, 28. I still have to put up that last
Episode
one.
28.
20. Kick punch. It's all in the mind. If you want to test me, I'll sure you'll find. Yada, yada, yada. He had an onion for a head.
Dun, dun.
Indeed. Welcome, everyone, to Two Fat Guys Talk Games live via...
Not quite, though.
Via satellite.
This would be our first podcast of 2013, wouldn't it?
Technically, yes. Our 2013 predictions one was recorded in late December, although only released on January 1st. So this is the first episode...
That takes place in 2013.
Yes, that is correct.
Other than, I think we did the And Friends episode that unfortunately was lost in production.
It was a funny story. And, but yes, so welcome to the new year, chumps and chumpettes, as we talk about a bevy of new topics. And let's start with one of them. Dave?
Let's go after Nintendo first. I love going after Nintendo.
Excellent. So, as our 0.7278 average viewers, listeners know, we are not fans of Nintendo on this show. Not because they don't make Call of Duty, no, but because they make shitty games in general these days and like to bend over and rip off consumers. Bend over and rip off, that's my analogy. So, recently, there was a Nintendo news event where we learned about some upcoming titles for the Wii U. Some look interesting, some look and others look also
Well, let's go after the potential good.
Yes.
The HD, not remake, the HD...
Port
of Wind Waker.
Yes, Wind Waker. I'm not a fan of the 3D Zeldas, but I have a soft spot in my heart that hopefully isn't some kind of infectious disease for Wind Waker. But I don't know if I want to play it again. Still very cool to see that Zelda get some recognition, though.
You know, if other games came along that got me to buy the Wii U, I would play it again. There's even been some rumors, and this is heavy rumor, that they might go back and fix a couple of the retardation spots in that game. Things like the Master Quest, just how stupid that got.
I didn't know Wind Waker had a Master Quest.
That was the quest for all the Triforce pieces.
Oh,
it's called the Master Quest.
I thought the Master Quest was the second playthrough in various Zeldas.
I could also be using the wrong name.
I think you're thinking of the Triforce Hunt.
It is,
yes.
But in a bunch of stuff I was reading online, people were referring to it as whatever. Anyway, the Triforce Hunt. I'll admit, when I played that game, I stopped for a while at that part.
Because
that was boring as fucking hell.
I stopped for a good 9 months before going back to it and finally grinding out those pieces. I'm glad I did, because the nuclear-powered silver arrows and the awesome final boss fight are worth it.
Oh, it was.
But
I just don't know if I'd make it through a second time, even in HD.
And that's why I won't. I don't like the 3D Zeldas. The reasons I liked Wind Waker had very little to do with how it played and more to do with the fact that I like the aesthetic of it. Mm-hmm. I like the visuals, I like the music, I like the general atmosphere of it. I didn't give two shits about the mechanics of it. So I don't think I'm going to revisit it. But it's still cool to see that one get the attention. I'd rather have a Zelda 2 HD release, but that will never happen in a million years.
Nope.
There's also the Yoshi's Epic Yarn game. I know that's not the title of it, but I call it Yoshi's Epic Yarn.
You might as well.
As a fan of both Kirby's Epic Yarn and the original Yoshi's Island, this is mildly intriguing to me.
Of course, going back to Zelda for a moment, they have admitted that a new one is in development.
Yes,
and that's the whole reason why they're bringing out the HD version of Wind Waker, is because it's going to take them some time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes studios can take too long to bring out a game, but if they're going to do something right, they might as well take their time. And honestly, I don't think they took enough time in the last two. Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess had a lot of areas where it did feel very rushed. So take your time, flesh it out, don't make it suck, Skyward Sword, and maybe, just maybe, I'll be interested in the next one, because Skyward Sword was kind of the last one that I'm done.
Yeah, you stuck with the series a lot longer than I did.
I enjoyed Twilight Princess, mainly because I was playing a more mature adult Link. I know that's kind of a low reason to be interested, but I always preferred adult Link, who was the kick-ass Link, to Kid Link.
I bought the GameCube version of Twilight Princess, or as I call it, the correct version of Twilight Princess.
Here we go.
I played up to just before the beginning of the first dungeon, and then I kind of looked at the TV, I sauntered over to my GameCube, and I shut it off. And I've never gone back or regretted that day. Because I think I was just done. I'm like, this is not fun for me. And I don't think it has been for a long time, so I didn't even touch Skyward Sword.
Mm-hmm.
Friend of the show, well, occasional guest on the show, Kiki, has played through it, and she got her nice gold Wiimote Motion Plus, but not my thing.
And that's fine. I got that version as well. Mainly I wanted it for the soundtrack and for the built-in Wii Plus controller.
Mm-hmm.
But I played my Wii version a whole bunch. I played my emulated version a bunch as well, and it does make it better. Unfortunately, it doesn't make up for the weakness of the game.
I would love to see a new 2D Zelda, but I don't think it'll happen. That's why shoutouts to Cryamore, which recently started its Kickstarter campaign. Looks like my 2D Zelda fix when it eventually comes out.
You know, it reminds me of that. It also reminds me of another 2D-ish one. Why?
East.
Yes.
There's East. Brave Fencer Musashi was another
really shitty one.
It was not shitty. Brave Fencer Musashi is the underrated RPG of the entire PlayStation generation.
This was me playing Brave Fencer.
Too bad that game is challenging enough and you suck enough that I know this couldn't be true.
Game was so boring.
It was boring if you have no idea what a good game is. Now, there are other influences in Cryamore, but that looks like it's going to be my Zelda fix. I think it's the indie devs and the non-Nintendo devs that are going to help me get my classic, old-school Zelda fix, because Nintendo's found the winning formula. Sell garbage to fanboys, and fanboys pay the money. Speaking of garbage, apparently the new Smash Brothers is going to be talked about at E3. That was another item to come out of the Nintendo news. Namco Bandai is working on this. I have zero hopes for it, regardless.
Well, the fact that Namco Bandai is working on it isn't the linchpin in the, oh my god, this is going to suck. Dickhead, who developed the last two, is still in charge.
What's his name, Dave?
Couldn't tell you for the fucking life of...
It's Sakurai.
Dickurai.
Dickurai.
I mean, this is a guy who really has no fucking clue what fans actually want.
No, here's the thing. I think he knows what fans want. I think fans want the dumbest anti-gaming shit in the world, and Nintendo knows this, so it can peddle to them. Fans think they want unlockable characters for replay value, quote-unquote. A term I am beginning to hate, by the way. That's what fans think they want. So Nintendo's like, okay, we'll give you unlockable characters and a whole bunch of other shit that has nothing to do with the quality or depth of the mechanics of the game. Here's another Smash Brothers. Give us your money, you fucking suckers. I think Nintendo's really good at knowing what fans want. I think fans are just dumb. I said this during my commentated Zelda 2 playthrough, which you can view on YouTube, youtube.com/AxelHander. And what was I talking about again? Right. Nintendo fans are some of the most obnoxious fans in the world, and they have this backwards-ass idea of what gaming and game design is. And Nintendo has this backwards-ass idea of what gaming and game design is, so of course Nintendo knows what they're doing. They're giving fans exactly what they want. It's like how Westboro Baptist Church or whatever, with their extremely inflammatory signage and protests, that church that people want recognized as a hate group knows how to appeal to the knuckle-dragging hick. It's the same situation.
I don't know. I just think it has very little to do with what studio's doing it, and all to do with the person who's in charge of production.
Indeed.
Because all really Namco Bandai has to do at this point is take the code from the last one, spruce it up a little bit, add a few more stages, change the UI, and they're pretty much done.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking Team Ninja taking over, Metroid and redoing something.
And even that wasn't really Team Ninja's fault. They tried to make a good game.
Well, that was all script and everything else. I enjoyed the actual physical game to a point. The storyline killed me.
I think I'd like a Team Ninja Smash Brothers, provided Sakurai was not in charge. But that's the problem. He's in charge.
Always in charge.
And Nintendo's going to keep him there, because why wouldn't they? He made them money. It's the same reason Michael Bay movies succeed.
Getting a really evil stare from Carlos right now.
Why did you go to that movie?
I'm a Transformers whore.
I know. It's okay. I'm a whore of a lot of things too. Speaking of whores,
you can't.
I really wish I had a better transition for speaking of whores. Speaking of horrors, how about that other topic we were going to talk about?
Well, before we get to the main topic of today, we talked about Nintendo and its upcoming stuff.
Let's talk about Sony and Microsoft rumors.
And before you bridge into that,
we
gotta start give Nintendo a good uppercut right to the chin.
I'm always up for that. What do we got to do?
Wii U Virtual Store.
Oh, yeah, the Virtual Console.
Our group has talked multiple times about how the Virtual Store should work.
Virtual Console. It has a name, Dave.
Shove it. The Virtual Store.
Console.
Console. We believe that the Virtual Console should be a subscription service where it gives you the entire access to the entire library of the store. That way, I can play the games I want, and I'm not being fucked over at $4.99 or $5.99 for an NES game. Technically, $5.99, $6.99. The reason why this topic is coming up today is Nintendo has recently announced that if you've purchased from the Virtual Console on the Wii, to get the same version on the Wii U, which it's not the same version because it has, I guess, virtual saves and a bunch of other little things, you have to pay $1 for every NES game to upgrade and $1.50 for every Super NES game.
Which is ridiculous. Virtual Console.
Number one, the game should be costing that much, period. Not, $7.99, $8.99 for an SNES game. Or $5 for a frickin' NES game. It's just, what the hell?
I have no issue paying money for good games, and certainly a lot of NES and Super Nintendo games are great. But Nintendo, this is pennies of work. And the markup is in the thousands of percentages. And they still don't offer their entire first-party library on the service. It is the biggest money laundering scam in gaming, is Nintendo's fucking Virtual Console. Hell, even if we're talking about Nintendo WiiWare titles, these are like Xbox Live Arcade and PSN titles. These are supposed to be original titles.
Yep.
Even when older games come out to Xbox Live Arcade and PSN, they tend to have a few extra frills to them to make them worth purchase.
Well, they're usually HD markups. They've got modes. It's not just Pac-Man from the NES. We got Pac-Man Championship Edition.
Yeah. And that's the issue. If I bought...
And I might say here, I paid $10, 800 Microsoft points, for Pac-Man Championship Edition, when Nintendo's trying to charge me $8.99 for Pac-Man...
On the NES.
On the Super NES in that case. Or $5 for the NES version.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
It is noise. It is absolute noise. I would be willing to pay if, say, the Super Nintendo Virtual Console version of Mario World had a classic mode and the mode with all the Game Boy Advance extras. So the different Luigi, the Well, okay, the different Luigi is the big selling point for that one.
For me, the thing that pissed me off there is you can't buy the Super NES version of Mario World with the redone Mario 3, Mario 2, Mario 1.
Yeah, the Mario All-Stars version.
You can't do it. You have to buy Mario World and the NES versions of 3, 2, and 1.
And Nintendo, in true rip-off fashion, did release Mario All-Stars as a full-on Wii game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is such a big rip-off. And in the day and age of Steam and all the benefits Steam has, and even the lesser benefits PSN and Xbox Live have, it's unacceptable. It's a big rip-off. Like, Nintendo is basically asking gamers to not give them money and just find emulators.
Which is all they're doing in the first place.
I'm playing Zelda 2, I'm doing a commentated playthrough, and I'm using the emulated version of it. I feel no guilt, because I have purchased that game no less than twice for my NES and my Wii. Now they want me to pay an extra $1 to get my Wii version to work on my Wii U if I ever do get a Wii U?
Hang on. Actually, that's incorrect. Your Wii version will work on your Wii U, you just won't have the extra Wii functionality. Like, it won't play on your Player One,
your gamepad,
stuff like that. So it will work, because I know a couple people who listen to our podcast will point that out, but still, upgrading the half a meg file to be able to have that functionality for $1.50 is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It is noise, and Nintendo's going to get away with it because people are going to keep giving them money. So what do you do? This is how Nintendo works. Regardless, there are still a few Wii U games that look mildly interesting. We'll see if it ever gets me to get up and purchase a system.
I mean, Pikmin has never interested me.
Never interested me as well, but I can see why some people would be interested in Pikmin.
I mean, looking at the games right now that are out / supposedly on the horizon, kind of interested in the Zelda Wind Waker. Again, only if I had the system.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to try the Zombie U, mainly more for just how hard I've seen it is. Just when you die, your guys you end up having to kill them as a zombie sort of thing. That sort of thing, just I'd enjoy that. I'd name one Carlos personal, just get him killed right at the beginning, just like to keep on whapping him.
I know. I've always known you wanted to whap me off.
Dun, dun, dun. Right into that one. But really, there's still not many Wii U games that are even out and are interesting. I mean, it almost seems like Nintendo's rushing out their virtual console stuff to try and hide the fact that, hey, we've got shit.
I wouldn't care if the Wii U only had one really good game. It doesn't have that. Like, I don't need a huge library of titles I'll never buy or play to be confident in my purchasing. I just need to know the titles I do buy are going to be for my while, and that Nintendo isn't keen on inserting a penis forcefully to my anus. I am not confident about either of these things.
Well, I mean, you and I both used to have the mindset that unless the game had, 4 or 5 really good games that we're going to buy, we didn't buy the system.
Yeah.
That being said, I did buy for Christmas, the PS Vita.
For Persona 4.
For Persona 4.
Golden. And you know what?
And that's the only game I know that I'm going to get, other than maybe a couple of back tales off of the PlayStation, or the PSP, rather.
My philosophy now is if there's a really good game I must play and to assist, I'll probably get the system.
Yeah, it's...
But there are some titles, much like you with Wind Waker, that I would wait and see if there was some other game that made me buy the system, and then I'd get the first title in question.
I mean, hell, for the Xbox, or the Xbox 360, I was interested in a bunch of the shooters that were out that I had played over at your place. But what got me to buy it was frickin' Pac-Man.
Pac-Man Championship Edition?
Yeah. I played that at your place. I'm like, holy fuck, I love this. I was looking for a Xbox 360 Elite the next day.
Nice. I'm going to tell you an embarrassing Xbox 360 story of mine. Back when I was a Sonic fanboy and I thought that all 3D Sonic games were just misunderstood, the whole reason I purchased the 360 was to get Sonic 06.
Oh, God.
So I did. And that's when there's only so much my fanboy mind could take. And I need to thank Sonic 06 for making me start to be much more critical of games. Because after, when I stopped, I'm like, my God, you know what? This game is the culmination of all these games I've defended. They're all almost as bad. So it made me rethink a lot about it. And my opinions have flip-flopped. Like, my opinions of the old 3D Sonics are that they still suck, but there's reasonable things. And I bought Sonic...
you flip-flop on a lot of things.
Fuck you. I bought Sonic Generations recently because it was on sale, and it's actually fairly solid. Now, that said, I bought a 360 for Sonic 06 back in 2006. And I was so disappointed when the game was shitty. And then I discovered Xbox Live Arcade, and I'm like, whoa.
I still remember.
Serendipity. Shit. This Geometry Wars is way better than Sonic 06. This is an awesome idea. Why hasn't anybody done a Live Arcade like this? And that's what sold me on... That's what made me not regret having the system. Great games like Gears of War, the Gears of War series, and other arcade titles like Bastion, and some fun indie titles like Super Amazing Wagon Adventure, and some fighters like Skullgirls and Marvel and whatnot sealed the deal. But the system I originally bought for this terrible game ended up being an unexpected blessing.
Little bit of a story here on Sonic 06.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos had bought this. He had played it a little bit, and I was really curious about it because I hadn't really played many of the Sonics. I had my GameCube at the time, so I played a little bit of the first Sonic Adventure, finally. Things like that, but I had not played the 3D versions at all, and I was like 4 versions behind, so being able to see Sonic 06 sounded like really cool. It was really hyped at the time. So I come over to Carlos's, and I'm like, yeah, so can I try Sonic 06? And all 3 of them there. Carlos,
that's me, Poe, and Kiki, by the way.
I was about to say that. They're all looking at me and they're like, "Don't. You don't want to do this." I'm like, "Oh, come on, it can't be that bad." And they're like, "Okay, fine. Play the first chapter." So I knew I was in trouble just based on the load times. I'm looking over and I'm like, "Is this installed?" Yes.
Actually, I don't think there were game installations at the time.
Yeah, there was.
There were?
Yeah. Installations were available.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong. Regardless, inexcusable.
Look at these loading times, and I'm just like, okay, wait. A character just said one word, and we're another... How long of a load time? Holy crap! And
25
to give you an idea, if you're curious about the load times, as well as some really funny videos, look up Game Grumps on YouTube.
Watch their Sonic 06 playthrough. It is slowly killing them.
Yes.
This is Ego Raptor and John Tron. You may have heard of them individually.
They're like on episode 45, and they're only done the first campaign.
They're on episode 51.
Oh, God. So I'm...
as of this recording.
I'm like 7 videos behind, and you just can't help but feel sorry for them playing through this game. Anyway, so I get to the first chapter, and I'm in this town. I'm like, okay, well, where do I go? There's no fucking help at all. There's no indication of shit. I finally get into the first level, and I think I lasted a whole minute and a half until I hit a hill that I couldn't actually jump high enough or something, and it killed me. I'm like, this is really shitty.
Now, keep in mind, getting to the first level involves watching the opening cutscene, watching the loading screen after that, having to do a mission in town to earn some rings, to buy the light chip so you can go across rings, finally going across some ring, and then getting into level 1. This process takes about
half an hour
10 to 30 minutes to get into stage 1.
Yeah, so I didn't need any more. I already realized this was like bullshit. And now that I've been watching Game Grumps, I see it's even more so. Little bit of a story there, but yeah, Sonic 06 was really bad. And I didn't realize you bought your Xbox for that one.
I did. I was a big Sonic fanboy back then, and I got that system entirely for Sonic 06. A nice happy accident, because I discovered way better titles.
Oh,
totally. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have got to play the excellent Gears of War trilogy, or the Xbox 360 Halos, which consist of 3 good games and 1 piece of shit! Halo 4. And...
We enjoyed Halo 4 until the ending.
I'm not giving that game any kudos for its bullshit QuickTime event final boss.
Dude.
Not giving any kudos.
No. You see, that's the wrong attitude to take. We both don't like the fact the boss is a QuickTime event.
Do you remember at the end of Wind Waker when you had to sword fight Ganondorf?
Okay.
Now, I mean sword fight. Like you tried to counter him, and he would counter your counter, so you'd have to parry his counter to your counter.
Okay.
Do you know what would have made that game better? By you watching Link do this, and occasionally tapping up on the control pad.
Okay.
Quoted by nobody ever.
Okay. I understand that, and I hate the ending to 4. I do. But that was a minute of bullshit, a bad design flaw, in a game that still gave us fun. So I'm not going to say that Halo 4 is a piece of shit. I am going to say that it was a disappointing end.
It's not a piece of shit if I'm still playing it, because if I really thought it was a piece of shit, I
wouldn't be playing anymore. Yeah.
But the problem is, like, for all its little tweaks and improvements, it doesn't give you nearly enough to make you ignore the wild problems.
Well, they were playing too safe.
And part of the issue is that 343 looked at other games that are popular, and they copied their bullshit mechanics without any thought for why these mechanics might be flawed. Not just the quick time events, both in the final boss and other places in the campaign, but the needing to grind out your upgrades. That's the other big one, actually. And they looked at other modern games and went, hey, this is popular, and I just know somebody at a meeting somewhere was like, hey, maybe these popular things actually blow, and we shouldn't put them in our game. And then he got thrown out a window. This is what happened. I'm taking that from a recent Pokemon comic I saw where these two head Pokemon are asking the new starters what the fire type should turn into. One variant has two of them saying firefighting, and the third one saying, why don't we make him something different like fire dark or something? And then they threw him out a window.
Fair enough.
The other variant was just them flipping it around.
So onto our next sort of sub-topic, the upcoming PS4/Xbox 720.
Keep in mind, we are reading...
These are all rumors on multiple sites, but we're still putting a very heavy rumor, no proof, supposed insider information. The stats are kind of interesting from a standpoint of just how powerful they're trying to make it. I mean, we're dealing with multiple core systems. The thing I find interesting is, according to rumors, both the Xbox and the PS4 will be running on an AMD processor and an AMD video card, which is strange. Usually it's one does AMD, the other one does Intel with NVIDIA. So
one has no drivers and the other bursts flames every once in a while.
Wait, which one's that? Which one bursts into flames?
Sure. Anywho,
so both of them are reported to have multiple cores. The Xbox is at 6 to 8 cores, while the PS4 is at 4 core. 3 to 4 gigs of RAM on the Xbox. 2 gigs of RAM being on the PS4.
My Mac Pro Tower has 10 gigs.
We're talking for the GPU.
How many gigs does your PC have?
16.
Of RAM?
Yeah. 16 gigs of RAM, and my video card's at 4.
You got a lot of RAM, Dave. Your penis must be enormous.
It is. Duck, because when I turn around, I don't want to hit you in the head.
Yes. Or do you? So,
I mean, we're definitely seeing where they want to make these things powerhouses, but going along with the rumor, these are for dev kits, which are traditionally more powerful than the standard kits that we get. I also don't think that the PS4 will have only 2 gigs of RAM onto the card. That sounds a little bit slow. Low, rather, for today's system.
Keep in mind, a PC swallows up a lot more of that RAM a game console will. Game consoles, generally, they can get away with much lower RAM because that's all they do.
True.
Like, in all honesty, a game console with 2 gigs of RAM is probably... The game is probably using 1.95 of those 2 gigs, whereas on a PC with 10 gigs, maybe it's using 4 to 5 of those gigs. So,
but yeah, no, it sounds like they're going for a much more powerful system in general, but ultimately we're still talking very much a rumor mill until probably E3 at best.
Oh yeah, E3.
Because
this is going to be a busy, eventful E3, I think. Much better than last year's.
Well, we're actually going to have... Last year's E3 sucked because Microsoft and Sony didn't have anything to show off.
Hey, we have a gaming podcast. We could probably sign up to go.
I'll look into it.
Okay.
Anyway, things I think are going to happen in this new generation. Number one, I don't expect Sony will have any backwards compatibility for even PS3 games. And that's mainly because of the fact that they're changing their processor and their chips. They have to emulate everything. I don't think it's going to work. So I'm thinking no backwards compatibility on the PS4.
A change in processors doesn't necessarily mean emulation. I mean, Wine on Linux systems doesn't really emulate, kind of tries to relate Windows processes to Linux hardware instructions, which is why Wine sometimes run things better than Windows. But I mean, but will Sony develop a really in-depth backwards compatible solution for their new chipset? Probably not. So you're right. It's probably going to be emulation.
Yeah, at best. And it won't be emulation. You can use your own discs. It'll be buy it from the store.
Awesome. And Sony's tried this before with the PS Go, so this is not new territory to them.
Yeah, but that failed hard.
It failed hard. I kind of liked the look of the system. I liked it aesthetically. It was comfortable to hold. Mm-hmm. Still, really bad idea.
Yeah. Besides that, I did read a rumor on one site, though I don't believe it for as far as I could throw my apartment complex, that the PS4 will have the capability of hooking up to your Vita and outputting to your TV. I don't believe that at all.
Well, here are the challenges.
I really want that functionality, don't get me wrong, but I don't believe it.
It could work because even though the Vita has touch screens and surfaces, if you need to use your Vita as a controller, you can still use those surfaces. On a 3DS, your TV would be a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
The Wii U could technically do it with the gamepad and the V, though.
Oh, that'd be a clusterfuck.
But most 3DS games are made with that screen configuration in mind.
Yeah.
So
now, as far as the Xbox goes, same thing. I'm thinking we're going to see. Actually, I think on Xbox we'll have the capability of playing Xbox 360 natively. It's going to have a Blu-ray drive. I'm just going to come out and say it's going to have a Blu-ray drive.
I think Microsoft...
They would be fucking stupid not.
I don't think Microsoft wants to give that to Sony. I don't
think they have the choice anymore.
I think they're just going to... They're going to invent a proprietary thing, or they're going to recycle HD, DVD for their games.
If we were going to see a new media standard, I think we would have heard about it already. That's something really hard to keep under wraps. A new disc type? No. It's going to have a Blu-ray player. It's going to, because they're going to want people to be able to play current movies on. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, both of those systems, both of those companies, are relying on you using their system as a media system.
Yes, but media centers with on-demand films, television, is quickly becoming digital.
True.
I mean, when you start seeing Ubuntu TV, and Ubuntu TV starts becoming a realistic success prospect, you start to wonder how visible even Blu-rays are going to be.
I'm still going to want my, in most things, I'm still going to want the actual physical media. Just saying. Mainly because I don't want the opportunity for them to pull the plug for me to lose everything.
Yeah, that's the one down.
That's going to become more of a thing. If a company goes down, I mean, Netflix, you're buying a subscription. So if they go down, you haven't lost it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say tomorrow Apple crumbles. All your iTunes...
Apple crumble.
I wasn't going for a pun there, but it works. But let's just say that they crash and burn. All of a sudden, all your iTunes purchases, all your on-demand Apple TV, it's all gone. You've spent a whole shitload of money on that, and it's just gone. You have no ability to get that back other than to pirate it.
Especially if they file bankruptcy. I think if one of these major content providers filed for bankruptcy and people lost a lot of money in virtual goods, I think piracy would go up so damn high that the recording and film industries would have no choice but to sort of themselves, because nobody will buy shit anymore. They trust it.
No, and some of them would actually probably prefer that. But we're getting a little bit off topic.
Indeed.
Oh, gee, wow, us getting off topic.
We never get off topic, ever.
So that's really the big things as far as the new systems. I mean, let's face it, they're going to make better-looking games. There's some question on whether your PS and an Xbox Live purchases will move over, whether you're going to have to keep your 360 around to play those games. There's a lot of questions right now, and there's not many answers coming through. I personally think that all of our purchases are protected with them, that they will move over to the new systems, because I think it would be a stupid thing on their part to...
You know, this raises an interesting legal question. Do you think sometime in the future, possibly in the year 2000, that there will be some sort of law, some sort of mandate to use a law that offers protection insurance for electronic goods the same way
at least Canada, in our banks we have investment insurance, where if a bank goes under, up to I think $100,000 of your savings are protected and guaranteed by the government.
I don't.
I would wonder if the changing landscape of, because we have things like Second Life currency having real world value, and Second Life goods that politicians want to tax them because they have real world value, right? So maybe there's a case for people, for a future politician to have to somehow legislate,
shoehorn this into.
Well, I really do think eventually it has, because electronic entertainment is becoming more and more accepted, as it should be, and more it's going to become a political thing. As it like, look at how the government bails out the auto industry. Like, the entertainment industry is a well-known lobbyist in United politics. Lest Mickey Mouse's copyright should have expired and he should have been public domain already. I'm just saying the political ramifications are interesting if they happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, I've never really looked at it like that because I've never actually used any of those services. I also don't consider like
you've used the electronic services. You have a Steam account. Okay,
what I mean, for a good example, I was thinking more from a MMO standpoint of, you said Second Life, for instance.
Yes.
Things like World of Warcraft, the pets you buy. Things like the cosmetic stuff you can buy in Guild Wars.
In those cases, though, keep in mind, according to their terms of service, you are merely purchasing license, use them in-game, and not sell them. That's what separates them from Second Life, where you can run a business in the game.
Good point. I guess I don't have enough information because I've never played it.
Fair enough.
So I don't know anything that has actually gone that route that would affect real-life goods. So, because I don't know about it, I'm not going to go into it. Ultimately, in this case, looking at it from the outside, not having used it before, the second you're going into, well, even Bitcoin. You know Bitcoins, right? Bitcoin is you buy Bitcoins to spend on other websites. You can also grind out by clicking on ads, playing game, doing stuff. You can earn Bitcoin. It takes a long time, but you can. It's currently being used a lot by Newsgroup and BitTorrent sites, because they can't use PayPal or anything else anymore. But Second Life with virtual goods that are worth real-world money, I think that's really fucking stupid. Actually, there's that one game that has real-world value as well, on EVE Online.
Yeah, you're thinking. Is it that they have real-world value, or is it just that the in-game economy, because it's run by real-world people running its in-game politics, just has a much more dynamic economy?
No, you can...
I'm sure what I just said wasn't a sentence, but whatever.
Yeah, well, people have bought, super carrier ships for hundreds of dollars.
People have introduced banking service in a game, and then kept all the money and sold it for real-world money. So,
play to win.
Play to win. Speaking of playing to win, let's talk about exploiting in games.
Yes, our main topic of the day that only took us, by the raw format at least, 45 minutes to get to.
With all the trimming of the fat and whatnot,
half an hour.
Our listeners will probably get to it in negative 5 minutes, which means they've already heard this.
Ooh,
time compression.
That's meta.
That is meta. That's extremely meta. So,
by the way, you're wrong.
Dave knows my stance on exploiting in games. I'm going to explain it.
Tell the fans.
I'm going to explain it to our 2.2 fans, because I have an ego and I love people to listen to. So, I play fighting games, and fighting gamers are notorious for exploring the limits of an engine. So if there is a glitch or an exploit or anything to give you an in-game edge, in-game, as in no external hacking, no beating up the other player, no
unplugging the controller.
But in-game, if I can abuse a mechanic, create an unblockable situation for my opponent, if I can abuse a mechanic to extend my throw range further than I should have, if I can abuse Capcom versus SNK 2 rolling to do roll canceling to make just about any special move invincible, it is my duty as a player to learn this technique, or if I can't learn it, if I'm not good enough to pull it off, at least learn how to fend it off. That is how I view learning in game, because games are betterment, and games ask you to improve, to conquer them. So when in-game something is possible, whether or not the developers intend it means jack squat. you use it, or you can choose not to use it in the case of a single-player game. You want to challenge yourself, or maybe you just don't like playing the game that way. It's your game. But especially in a competitive or a multiplayer environment, to condemn players for doing this is paramount to asking players, hey, play our games at your own risk, because we might just arbitrarily decide that something you're doing is an exploit, quote unquote. Dave, what's your view on this topic?
Okay, well, I know a number of scenarios that we've talked about in the past that have come up. WoW's been a big topic on exploits and not jump ship tactics, but
getting to a rooftop that other people cannot easily access them, sniping them with mage fireballs.
That's one. I'm more going to reference the ones that are in dungeons. Now, I do believe if you find an exploit like that, if you find it and you use it once, hey, whatever. But if it's obviously a giant fucking exploit, and in the case of Blizzard being a bunch of fascist motherfuckers, that you really shouldn't be doing this. For example, if you're able to skip half a dungeon because you found a crack in the wall and managed to get through it through some sort of explosion tactic, and you run this dungeon 30 times in a 24-hour period, I don't think you should be so surprised when Blizzard comes along and says, bad guild, smacks your hand and takes away your loot.
I'm not surprised by it, because Blizzard is incompetent and they think this is cheating.
It is.
It's not cheating.
It really was.
Nobody did anything. In the case of that guild that got their victory taken away because they exploited line of sight or whatever on a raid boss.
See, that was bullshit, because exploiting line of sight, that's part of the game.
Let's just take a hypothetical scenario where someone did something a developer didn't intend to beat a raid boss, and now this guild is getting their achievement taken away. Bullshit. Nothing was done in-game that is outside the scope of the game. The moment that becomes a thing where a developer can slap your hand for doing that, you now call into question any action, because there is no difference between you should have realized that was bad and whoops, the weapon that dropped is accidentally proccing a super good effect at 3 times the normal rate. Blizzard didn't ban for that one sword that was doing that. They didn't ban people who used it when they just equipped it and did it, but they banned people for doing other similar things that they should have known was wrong, quote unquote. There is no difference. There is no difference between that and re-dizzy combos in a fighter, or taking your Fate Iron Pipe and adding plus 25,000 attack. Like, how would you have liked it if Square Enix banned you for that?
Well, number one, it was a single-player game. That was an actual mechanic game.
Yeah, but in this day and age of games being persistently connected, how would you like it if Blizzard versus Capcom had Blizzard saying, hey, Capcom, this infinite combo, you need to ban people who are using it. Now what?
See, I don't believe in bannings in the first place for stuff like that. I believe that in the case, yes, they realized they shouldn't have been doing it. What should have happened in that case, though, is let them keep the loot and fix your fucking game.
See, that I agree with. I don't agree with the whole thing about they knew they shouldn't have done it. As a gamer, you are gaming by trying to find the limits of the system. You are testing the limits of this interactive space, see what you can do, and clever within its rule set. That includes finding ways to exploit the rules in a way that is clever. Kind of like the forward pass in football. That was deemed appropriate. Or soccer formations, how in the beginning of soccer, everyone just ran their forwards forward and tried to shoot on net. And then there were some teams who did this little thing called passing. And those teams started winning. And suddenly, a lot of people were crying foul on that. Or when Tiger Woods was just slapping the shit out of everyone in golf, and people were complaining, it's a race to catch Tiger. This is no fun. Who gives a shit? He was the better player.
Here's the thing though. There are things that are obvious exploits.
No, there aren't. That's the thing. There are not things. These are non-existent things. There are no obvious exploits.
But there is.
If it's possible in the scope of the game, it is inherently, holistically part of the game, and therefore fair game.
And here's the thing. There is what the developer was trying to do.
Yes.
And then there's you breaking it. Mm-hmm. Now, You breaking it, it's on the dev to fix it.
I agree. Completely. You've got me so far.
Okay. Now, when I give you a raid dungeon that you have to kill 5 bosses before you get to the actual boss, and you find a way to bypass 4 of those bosses to get to the main boss, and you do it once, hey, we're cool. I need to fix that shit.
We call that skill. And I agree
no, that's not skill.
It's skill. I do
it's
agree.
Not.
I do agree that they need to patch that because of course they don't want players to circumvent that, right? But finding that is a skill. That is ability. But please continue.
And then you run said instance 30 times over the next 24 hours. You are exploiting a problem with the game.
Good. Gaming is about finding those. When I'm holding my fire button in Mega Man, whenever I'm not doing anything, I'm exploiting the fact that I can charge whenever I want.
You're using a mechanic. You're not using an exploit.
Everything is an exploit, and everything isn't an exploit. If it's within the scope of the game, it's fair. Games aren't real life. In the game, when the rules allow it, it is inherently part of the game. To try to separate one from the other is noise, because there's no real distinction here. That's kind of my issue with this idea of exploiting in games. It doesn't really happen. I've seen speedruns of games where people finish, like, The Elder Scrolls 2, which is about the size of Great Britain, in 20 minutes. And I see damn fine gameplay as they run through the floor and into the dark void, and eventually you come out on top of the world.
Yeah, no, and I guess the main thing I start looking at it as an exploit is, I mean, it's tough. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you.
And I do understand what you are saying, despite my tone.
Logically, yes, you're just using something you found in the game against it. It's no different than in Final Fantasy VI, the second you hit that first military camp, going in and killing the guys and getting tents aplenty to sell so you can have all the cool shit throughout the game.
Or stealing Mog's nice mithril spear and giving it to Edgar.
Exactly.
Or using Edgar.
Yeah, that was the exploit to that game.
In the Narsh encounter, 3 parties of mine were always 3 whatevers, and my last party was Edgar by himself. And I would use Edgar to clear 50 to 100% of the troops before fighting Kefka. 1 auto crossbow or bioblast would kill most of the...
There you go.
He would usually gain a good 5 levels.
But... yeah, no, it really comes down to the mindset of the company itself. I mean, Guild Wars did a similar thing, where the one store was fucked up, and it was allowing them to buy end game shit for very little credit. And they came up with it with a mindset. If you bought 0 to 100 of the item, okay, we're cool. I think it was like 0 to 50 or whatever else. Okay, fine. Whatever, we're cool, we're gonna leave it alone. The ones who bought into the thousands of the item, they 24-hour banned and took away the items. Kinda not cool.
The bans were unacceptable, and as I recall, there were a lot of permanent bans. But then
in the end, they backed off on that.
Yeah, they made a Reddit account saying if people apologized for it, they would reverse their decision, which I still have a problem with. Apologize for what crime? Like, it's...
On one hand, they fucked up. It was their stuff that was put too low, and people just bought a whole bunch of it. In a single-player game, we'd all just pat ourselves in the back and say, okay, we made things a little bit easier for ourselves, and let's move on. In a multiplayer environment, because... I mean, I have to use Guild Wars on this because of the whole gold store, buying real things, the transfer and everything else. It did fuck up the economy a little bit, and they had to be really anal about stuff like that.
So I'm willing to compromise, say, fine, take away the offending items.
Yep.
Don't ban any.
I do think they were a little bit too heavy-handed in that. And the Guild Wars crew happens to be one of my favorite MMO crews because not only do they actually care about their game, but they're generally really good guys on stuff like this. If you find...
I've never had lunch with them, so I don't know.
Neither have I, but between reading the dev stuff, being involved in Guild Wars 1 where stuff like this has happened in the past, they're generally really good guys on the stuff. It's more of a, hey, you found an exploit. Thanks. Generally in Guild Wars 1, when somebody found something like that, though, it hit the forums within like half an hour, and a person might get to use it once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a guild doing 50 runs of an endgame boss sort of thing. Granted, they also did a better system. You had to have killed all the bosses the way to get there.
Yeah, let's just all agree that Blizzard's full of shit.
Sure.
Now, I wanted to bring this into the real world.
Here we go.
So, Dave, there's this one athlete. You may have heard of him.
Yes.
Lancelot J. Armstrong.
He was wrong.
So,
He was wrong. Period. End of story. This isn't an exploit at this point, Carlos. It's not.
He's exploiting genetics.
No.
To be a better... Here's the thing about... Here's my whole opinion on Lance Armstrong. Okay, hear me out, Dave. Damn it. He cheated in a stupid-ass sport nobody cares about, and...
Except a lot of people do care about it.
Whoop-de-fucking-do. And he has contributed so much to cancer research, beyond and above what most people will ever contribute cancer research in 10 lifetimes, and has probably done more good for humanity than any amount of him using some substance to win some silly little bike race can ever take away from him. So, is Lance Armstrong history's greatest monster? No. I won't even agree that he's a bad person in the slightest.
Quite frankly, I heard the name a whole bunch growing up, but never gave a flying fuck. It's not a sport I care about. It has its niche. It's very popular, the bike races in Europe, as are a lot of stupid things, like soccer. However...
Red card, Dave.
That's fine. I take your red card, fold it into an airplane, and throw it into your eye.
The red card, the solid plastic.
I said I bend it into a fucking airplane and put it into your eye. Anyway, was Lance Armstrong wrong? Yes. Drugs are one of those things that, just like in the Olympics, your blood test is kept on record for, I think it's 20 years. So that as they find new drugs that are being used, they test all the athletes again. If you come up that you used that at a time when they couldn't detect it, your medal's taken away. You are giving yourself an unfair advantage. You are cheating. This is not an exploit. You're not making your bike better or anything else. This is not an exploit.
No, you're merely making the human machine there.
Yes, you are cheating. Do I think he deserves to have all of his trophies and everything else taken away? Yes. He flagrantly cheated.
Blatantly.
Actually, I think I'm still correct.
Flagrant, cheated. Yes.
Does that make him a monster? Only in the eyes of those who respected him and the sport. I don't.
Yeah, as a cancer survivor, I respect anyone who's done as much as he has to fight the disease. I told you I was going to use this cancer survivor card.
And that's fine.
One day I'm going to make money off this.
That's fine. One nut can,
me and my one testicle.
Yeah. One nut can still find him heroic. Do I respect the fact that he has done a lot for cancer research? Yes. However, the fact is, he was in the wrong.
I'm about as liberal as they come. I'm a very left-leaning guy in a lot of things, with a few little fringe issues like people being able to defend their own property. Then I turn into a real hardline conservative there. That said, despite my left-leaning ways, I'm about as anti-drug and drinking as they come. I don't do recreational drugs. I only take prescription and over-the-counter ones when I need them. I don't drink at all. And
he doesn't.
You know this full well. And I'm not about no substance abuse. Now, when I see drugs used in sport, I'm looking at it as more of the whole, like, enhancing your performance, which is why I guess they're called performance-enhancing drugs.
Just a bit.
And according to the rules, they're illegal. And I'm like, okay, like, in real life, it's a little tougher than in a game, because unlike in a video game system, which is forced by the system, reality is much more complex. And I could argue that just because I could go murder my rival in real life, I could, and that would be playing to win. But the problem is that would create, if I got away with it, that would create a less secure society, the society I might not want to be a part of. And if I didn't get away with it, I'm fucking in jail.
Yeah,
so,
you don't want to pull a Tanya Harding.
Exactly. So Lance Armstrong did something that is no doubt having repercussions for him and for the sport, which I guess is still very, very heavily pro-doping behind the scenes, right?
Well, yeah, they're talking about pulling out of the Olympics for the next 8 years.
Mm-hmm. And
at least.
And the thing is ultimately,
and I think that's a damn shame because you do have athletes that don't dope that are working to get into the Olympics, and all of a sudden now because of Lance Armstrong and the cycling council or whatever the hell it is, now these athletes that haven't been doing this, number one, the guys that he's defeated that weren't doing it are probably pretty pissed right now, especially second and third place. I mean, I don't know if they're much like the Olympics, if they're now going to go back and retro.
No, they're not.
They're not?
It's just going to remain that there was no winner.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess if you're the first loser, then I guess you can say, yeah, I'm the winner now. But
technically,
in the Olympics, they would actually go back and say, okay, well, you had the silver. Congratulations, here's your gold.
There were some medals that the committee asked Lance Armstrong to return. I always found that funny because I think the first place they would go was pawn shop. So I'd be like, okay, just contact Barry's over on 3rd and make sure that when you do, you go fuck yourself.
You don't have much respect for the Olympics, obviously.
No, I love watching the Olympics. I just don't see... as the future continues, as we live in the future right now, and we are slowly approaching the far future, we're approaching like the planescape cyberpunk era of humanity. We are going to have cybernetic implants. So I expect our athletes to be at least part machine. And I see doping as just one step in the evolutionary process. Lance Armstrong is our better because he injected himself with something. Not going to say it's dope, but it's totally dope.
Yeah.
And that something allowed him to win a whole bunch of medals that he can then melt down and turn into circuitry and install them into
the bottom line is, yes, he was wrong. It's okay because he did all this cancer research. It's just, I'm glad he used a bunch of his money to do fund cancer research. But the fact is, he wouldn't have been in that position if he hadn't cheated.
I'm an ends justify the means guy.
It doesn't make it right.
I'm an ends justify the means guy. So while I understand and respect your viewpoint, as a guy who doesn't give two shits about cycling, I only look at this as a dude who's being...
Put it into perspective for a sport you like, soccer.
Whatever.
Let's say the entire Portuguese team managed to dope over... couple decades.
Look, I'm gonna have a happy...
On some sort of fish steroid.
Some sort of fish steroid. I'm gonna have a happy family. Like,
of course you are.
Yeah.
And then when they're found to have cheated,
playing to win,
you guys aren't going to care. Yeah.
Now, soccer. Now,
it's no different than somebody using a corked bat in baseball. It's all performance enhancing something, and it is against the rules.
Sometimes before a fighting game tournament, I will take cold medication.
Okay.
Give myself a little bit of a buzz.
Okay.
Therefore, I should return my...
That's not against the rules, though.
I should return my 0 victories to the local fighting game community.
That's not against the rules, though.
I think we need to embrace biology, and wherever it may take us, I see why people are upset. At the same time, they're upset about something I really don't think a lot of them give a shit about.
But it's not your sport. That's the thing. There are a lot of people out there that cycling is one of our old co-workers.
Friend of the show. Insert his name here.
Paul.
Just go on. Friend of the show, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, friend of the show, Paul.
He's doing cycling now.
Yeah. Huh?
And it seems like he's doing it seriously.
That's right.
He'd be a good person to talk to on this.
Should we get him on the podcast? I can give him a call right now.
That's fine. It's just we would really need somebody who's actually interested and involved in cycling to get their opinion on some of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately, to put it into perspective for us, it would be like us using a Game Genie in a tournament.
That would be external and against my rules.
Exactly.
So I see. Very well played. Well played, Dave. Well played.
It's just, no, he's wrong. It's not an exploit. He's not doing something that will make his bike faster just because he's pedaling a different way or something.
Hey, you notice Lance's bike is smoking?
It's not an exploit at this point. It is just complete cheating.
You're absolutely right. Lance Armstrong is history's greatest monster.
No.
Sorry, Hitler, you've been dethroned.
Not quite, but...
Lance Armstrong and whoever the hell does that Control-Alt-Delete comic are now history's greatest
I
monsters.
don't know why everybody hates him.
In
He's an asshole, but...
in all honesty, even though I don't find the comic that funny, I've only read like a couple that have really made laugh, and the rest of them I'm like groan. I don't see all the condemnation. It's more people upset that someone's successful. And
I've met the guy, and he reminds me of William Shatner from 20 years ago.
Nice,
complete and utter dick, full of himself, but. So
but he's not history's greatest monster.
No.
And too many jackasses on the internet like to paint people who don't deserve being called history's greatest monster as history's greatest monster. It's just
ultimately this is going to hurt Lance Armstrong financially. Is it going to hurt the cancer research? Yeah.
Probably, which is unfortunate.
But
through the Livestrong Foundation, gonna hurt that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But alas, so exploiting in real life.
So nice try trying to bring this into the real world, but my Game Shark trumps your doping.
You are correct. When doping is an external influence. However, both in game and out, we need to consider that things that were considered cheats once might not be later.
True.
So, like, even though map hacks were illegal in Diablo 2, it kind of paved the way for add-ons in World of Warcraft.
True.
So perhaps doping being illegal now will lead to something safer that can be taken for athletes of the future.
I mean, if you want to look at it, the way that, as a subtopic to our exploit and topic, though, I mean, ultimately, we've seen the way that cheats are handled in our video games over the past 3 decades really change. I mean, let's face it, a cheat back in the days of the Atari were simply bugs in the game.
Or jiggling the switches until you got the desired effect.
Yeah, on the NES we had the Game Shark.
Game Genie.
Yes, Game Genie.
It was later that Game Shark / Action Replay.
Game Shark came in the CD era.
Mm-hmm. I think there was an Action Replay for the SNES, which is basically what the Game Shark was.
I don't think so. I think it was N64 was the first Action Shark. Because Game Genie...
Action Shark!
Yeah, whatever. In the cartridge era, we had the Game Genies, and those were totally acceptable. It was giving new things. You could cheat to give yourself money or lives. You could also do different game-altering things to the cartridge, not always in your favor. Then came the CD era / Nintendo being behind the times in the N64, and we had the Action Replay and all those. And those were still totally acceptable.
For single-player games, anyway.
Well, for single-player games, but you didn't have many multiplayer games at that point.
There are a lot of local multiplayer.
Yes,
but not online multiplayer.
Exactly. It wasn't until we hit the online era that all changed.
I wonder if you could use the Game Genie with X-Play, or whatever that Genesis Super Nintendo service was.
Doubt it.
Weapon Lord was compatible with that.
I don't think they worked.
Oh, Weapon Lord.
Yeah. But ultimately, we're now paying to cheat. Let's look at...
Blow my mind, Dave.
Okay. Look at any JRPG.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that happens on either Xbox Live or PSN the second a JRPG comes?
You can buy currency.
You can buy currency, items,
outfits,
weapons, etc.
When my brother and cousin
the Tales games are heavy with that.
When Poe, Kiki, and I were playing through Tales of Vesperia 3-player before we realized what a shitty fucking game that was, we did actually buy one of the Meseta packs and a couple of the extra skill packs so that we just have them handy. Actually, a bunch of them were free, so we got all the free ones.
So ultimately, what we used to be able to do with the Game Shark, we're now actually being charged for.
Indeed. And I'm kind of okay with that.
I'm not against it.
Assuming it's still stuff you still get if you decide not to pay.
Yes. I mean, ultimately, giving myself some money at the beginning of the game or getting a skill pack, that sort of thing, it's my choice. It's not buying something that's not available in the game. Yes, we have to work towards it. I might not get it until 20 hours into the game, but it's still there. Unlike outfits for Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
But even those are all choice-based.
Yeah, those are all aesthetic, except for the one Cody outfit in Street Fighter 4, which makes a certain Gen move miss.
Really?
Hit. I don't know if that outfit was ever banned or if that was ever patched. There was also an outfit Blanca.
Saw that.
Yeah, the Aztec costume. Because that was after the era when they were just selling you stuff on the disc. You actually had to download that one, and since I never did, I never saw it on people online.
Yeah.
But seeing it on streams, it is distracting as fuck.
That's a tactic.
Or in Soul Calibur 5, where your guy have a giant fuzzy dildo, so it kind of obscures your movement, and is also a giant fuzzy dildo.
That's not an exploit or a cheat.
No, it's a giant fuzzy dildo. I thought we've established this.
So, we've gone from cheating being totally viable in single-player games to even if we want to cheat now in a single-player game, we have to pay for the privilege of doing so. They would never allow a Gymshark or a Game Genie to come out now for any of the systems.
Maybe we need to take cue from the card game bullshit and just have it so that you're allowed to cheat, but if another player calls you on it, you points.
I just prefer the second I play a game with a cheat, it turns my achievements off.
That's also probably acceptable.
I mean, ultimately, that is one of their two reasons why they don't allow Game Genie Shark things now, because they don't want you to cheat in online multiplayer, and they don't want you to be able to get achievements and trophies easier.
I could see...
The second I turn that on, a flag would just hit that while I'm playing that game with that save, I can't earn an achievement. Boo fucking who.
I'm okay with some single-player game not being developed cheat and then not having cheat. Because part of gaming and part of any art form, which gaming is plugging into someone else's vision. And if someone else's vision involves conquering these challenges, then there's a certain amount of the art robbed from it when you decide to give yourself infinite lives. Now, a caveat, if you have already conquered the challenges and you are using these devices to make the game different for shits and giggles, I think that's totally okay. When I played through Final Fantasy VI a second time, I used my Super Nintendo Game Genie, and I used it to modify all my characters' commands. So I gave Terra Leo's Shock, I gave Locke Throw, I gave Mog rules because he's useless without it, and I gave characters a whole bunch of shit they never had. I put in code so that Ultima weapon stuff could drop from normal battles, and I just had a blast playing through that game on my own terms, right? And having the code where any monster at all could appear in the belt, even the final boss. Just shit like that, right? But I had already proven that I've conquered this challenge, and now I want to have fun with it.
You were doing what I should think all games should have, a new plus.
I was kind of doing a New Game Plus. However, I still want a hard mode in a New Game Plus. Part of the reason I think Chrono Trigger is wildly overrated is because in addition to that game's story being a clusterfuck and its battle system being cool but too easy, it is way too easy. Even on regular New Game, that game is so sickeningly, it needed a harder difficulty. But what do they give you instead? A way to make the game even easier. Well, thanks, Chrono Trigger.
You're ignoring their vision.
I am, but at the same time, I can call into question the validity of that vision.
I really do think that a New Game Plus is required, even at the regular difficulty. If I want to play the game over in a year, but I don't want to go through a 60-hour game. I read an article here recently where the writer considered Chrono Trigger to be a Sunday just throw in and play game because of the New Game Plus. He just wants to go through the storyline. That's what New Game Plus was. It wasn't intended to be hard at that point. You walked through it. I do agree. Games should also have a harder difficulty, but I do just sort of want that New Game Plus where I can just walk through a game in 5 years, go through my storyline, and not have to really worry about it.
I think you're missing the point of game, though. Because
why? I've already conquered it.
Doesn't that tell you something about the game's mechanics, where you're just saying, well, I don't fucking give a shit, I just want to see story again. I don't want to put up with that shitty-ass gameplay, I just want to kind of go through it.
Not at all.
Because
I've already conquered the game once.
But if the game were truly appealing, you would want to do it again.
But the game is appealing on a storyline basis. I could go through it in 40 hours. I want to go through it in 16.
You could read a script of a game online.
No, I want the visual and everything.
Yeah, well, okay, fine, I guess so, but you're kind of making an excuse for why a shitty game can stay shitty over a bunch of years.
Not at all. I've gone through Chrono Trigger on every system.
I've probably gone through Chrono Trigger more than you, and I go through it fresh every time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like, because I do enjoy the prospect of what the battle sim is, even though it's way too easy, right?
What I'm saying is, it's a neat mode to have.
I'm okay with the mode. I'm just saying it's not necessary.
But I don't want you. I wouldn't want your vision to be pigeonholed in over mine, because I want a new game plus at the same difficulty.
Well,
having a new game mode that's only a hard mode, I wouldn't want so much.
My RPG design doc has, right now it's calling for like a normal and a hard difficulty, and then another 2 difficulties that are only unlocked and intended for when you game.
What?
Yeah. So, like Diablo. Like, you know
wow, this is a change from hardcore Carlos. I should be able to play on the hardest difficulty from day one, period.
But it wouldn't be possible. This is because you get no extra endings in this or nothing. This is about this is what New Game Plus should have been. You play through the game again, but now because you have this equipment, the set of challenges is based around it and a different but familiar experience. So, in my game design doc, you can just power through the first 2 difficulties with all your stuff. In fact, I have the game set up in such a way that you pick chapters anytime you want. So let's say you beat the first segment of the game. Let's say you want to go back in the story to before that happened and run through that dungeon again. You can. The game will allow you to do that. It's not a time travel gimmick or nothing. There's no in-game explanation. You're just allowed to do that. That's modeled after Sonic Adventure 2, where you can go back to a chapter in the story and you'll still have all your power-ups. So, but I'd want some difficulties that are actually made around what if you had to conquer the game with all the good stuff you earned in the last one. That's part of the appeal of Diablo. Like going back to Chapter 1, and Chapter 1 now has challenges that you need your your Act 5 stuff from the last difficulty. And it would have been nice if I could have picked that mode like that in Chrono Trigger in New Game Plus, and suddenly the first boss is doing shit to me that I need my Rainbow Sword and Prism Shell armor to conquer.
Fair enough. I think we've run that one into the ground.
I like running everything to the ground. Except when I'm a flying type, then I am immune to ground attacks. Unless I use Roost.
Unless I hit you ground attack that,
In Pokemon, no one cares about that.
I guess Pokemon just...
Yeah.
I want an attack called Apocalyptic Earthquake, where the ground rushes up at 10 miles per hour and smacks you straight in the face.
Miss.
Miss, of course.
This has been Carlos.
And this has been Dave.
Two Fat Guys Talk Games, signing off.
See you next time.
Pubes.
So, if you've liked what you heard, you want to leave us some feedback, you want to give us some criticism, whatever, our podcast site is tfgtg.blogspot.com, where you can also find the feed link and our YouTube channel.
You can also find us on Twitter at tfgtg. Yeah. There's no way to continue that. So
no way to continue that sentence.
Please leave us some feedback. We accept good and bad. We will usually respond, seeing as we have such a small group audience.
We do have thousands of millions of followers, so we might not respond to you right away.
Sure, let's go with that.